This is a general overview of the mechanical, plumbing, and electrical systems of the Endeavour catamarans. Everything in this video may not apply to your boat. Some of the items shown are options, and Endeavour catamarans are constantly being improved as new products become available. For specific information, consult your owner's manual, but this video will help you service pumps, strainers, seacocks, fuses, filters, and so on. Let's start with the engines. The diesel engines in EndeavourCats are located in the aft staterooms underneath the bunks. You'll find there's plenty of room to reach anything on the engine. The dipstick is located on the left side of the engine, and you check the oil just like you would in your car. The oil should be changed after the first 50 hours, and then every 100 hours after that, or 6 months, whichever comes first. The engine uses 15W40 oil. The oil filter is in the back of the engine on the left, and you spin it off to change it just like you would your car's oil filter. The primary fuel filter is on top of the engine way in the back and should be changed annually. The secondary filter collects most of the impurities in the fuel. Any water collected in the fuel can be drained by loosening this plug. The filter can be primed again with the squeeze ball. The engine coolant is on the right-hand side of the engine. Don't add fluid directly to the engine. Simply pop the top off the canister and fill to the proper level. Make sure the fluid stays within the recommended range. The coolant is regular antifreeze 50-50 mixture, just like you use in your car. On the right side of the engine is a multi-use fuse that can be used 4 times. If you have problems starting the engine, first check the kill switch, then the battery, then the fuse. If the fuse is blown, just move it over to the next one. If that one blows, you need to check out the circuitry for a possible short. And over here's the battery switch that shuts off battery power to the engine starter. Normally it's in the on position. Belt tension should be checked periodically and should have about this much play. If it's too loose, it can be tightened by loosening both bolts on the alternator, rotating the alternator to tighten the belt, and then retightening both bolts. Also periodically check the hose clamps and make sure they're not corroded and that they're tight. These are the hot water hoses that run from the engine all the way to the hot water heater located underneath the bunk in the aft cabin. The transmission is located just aft of the engine, and the fluid level is checked without screwing the dipstick in. Just dip it in, pull it out, and read it. To add fluid, unscrew the large cap on top of the transmission. The transmission oil should be changed every 200 hours or annually, whichever comes first. The transmission also uses 15W40 oil. The seawater intake for the engine is on the right-hand side of the transmission when you're looking aft. Right now we're looking forward, standing behind the transmission, so it's on the left. Counterclockwise is open, clockwise is closed. These are the engine blowers that discharge hot air from the engine compartment. No maintenance required here. And this is your muffler. Also no maintenance other than checking the clamps periodically. While we're back here, let's check on the steering system. It's located behind this panel. The cable should be snug and deflect only slightly when you tug on the cable. If it's too loose, loosen the inboard nut and then unlock the lock nut, and then tighten the cable with the center nut. Then check the tightness of the cable again. If it's okay, tighten the lock nut and the inboard nut. Remember that both rudders must be adjusted equally. Bilge access in the starboard hull is in the head. Lift the access panel and you'll find seacocks for the head, including the large overboard discharge valve. All seacocks are clearly labeled with laminated red tags. This is the valve that selects between the holding tank and overboard discharge. In the new boats, this valve has been moved to the cabinet beneath the sink. In the bottom of the bilges are electric bilge pumps with float switches. Make sure that the bilge is clear enough of debris that it does not clog the bilge pumps. The manual bilge pump in the starboard hull is located underneath the sink in the head and operates like this. The port bilge contains the sending units or transducers for your electronics, both speed and depth. There's also an electric bilge pump, and this hose is attached to the manual bilge pump, which is located in one of the galley cabinets. To operate the marine head, put the switch in the wet bowl position and pump water into the bowl. Then use the bowl, pump everything out with the switch still in the wet position. Pump at least 10 times. Then switch to dry bowl and pump it dry. When you're taking a shower, make sure that the shower pump switch is on, both at the electrical panel as well as in the shower. The shower pump is located underneath the sink. To operate any propane appliance, the knob on the propane tank must be turned on, and the tank also has a meter showing the pressure in the tank. The solenoid control switch in the galley must be turned on. To operate the burners in the stove, press in on the knob and turn it to the ignite position, then push the spark generator repeatedly until the burner lights. Once it lights, continue to hold the knob in for about 10 seconds. Then adjust the flame and release the knob. To ignite the oven, you have to actually light the pilot each time with a handheld spark generator. Press and hold the knob in just like the burners. Once the pilot lights, continue to hold the knob down for about 10 seconds until the pilot burns stronger. In about a minute, the oven will ignite. Then just close the door and adjust the temperature. When you're finished using the stove, don't forget to turn off the solenoid switch. To operate the refrigerator freezer, turn on the switch at the electrical panel and start the thermostat at the midpoint. Let it get cold and then adjust it up or down to suit your needs. 1 is the warmest setting, 7 is the coldest. The fresh water pump is located beneath the seat in the salon, at the mast step. The only service required here is to keep an eye on this filter. If you see any sediment, turn off the valve, spin the bowl off, rinse it out, and replace it. There's no need to bleed the line because it's self-priming. This is the control panel for the digital air conditioning system. To turn the air conditioning on, just press Cool, and in a few seconds you'll hear it come on. To turn it off, just press Off. To turn the heat on, press Heat. To bring the temperature down, push the down button. To bring it up, push the up button. Once you've got it to where you want it, press Set. To get the current cabin temperature, press Temperature. Press Cool, Heat, and Fan simultaneously in order to turn on the dehumidifier. When the air conditioning is on, a strong, steady stream of water should be exiting the through hull fitting above the waterline. To clean out the strainer, first close the seacock, then unscrew the knob on top of the strainer, remove the lid, clean out the basket, and reinstall. Make sure that the O-ring is properly seated or it can get distorted and cause leaks. Then turn on the seacock and check for leaks. The electrical panel handles both AC and DC circuits. The column to the right is for AC circuits. The 2 other columns are DC circuits, each with its own circuit breakers. The meters on top read voltage and current, and there's a selector switch for the meters. There are water and fuel gauges, as well as port and starboard electric bilge pump switches. These should be left in the auto position. And there's a master battery switch. Always use either one battery bank or the other, never both, so that you have one bank in reserve. If you find yourself with a low battery bank, before touching the battery switch, start the engine that will start and bring the RPMs up to 1500 RPM. Then put the switch in the both position and start the other engine. Do not switch to both until at least one engine is running. Access behind the electrical panel is very simple. Because it's hinged, you just unscrew 2 screws and swing the door open. However, unless you know exactly what you're doing, it's best to leave service back here to a qualified technician. The electrical connections for the mast are located underneath the seat in the salon at the base of the compression post. All around the boat are quality aluminum opening hatches and ports that may require adjustment from time to time. To make the adjustment, you'll need an Allen wrench and a crescent wrench. Tighten the latches until they're snug, until there's no leaks, but they're not too difficult to close. You want your hatches to be able to stand up on their own, so you may need to tighten or loosen the hinges. You do that by removing the caps and using an Allen wrench to tighten each of the 6 adjustments equally. Once they're all adjusted equally, replace the caps. It's very important that all the hinges be adjusted equally. The hatch should stay up at whatever position you leave it. To start the engines, press in on the red neutral safety switch and push the throttle forward. Turn the key to preheat and wait for about 10 seconds. Then start the engine and return the throttle to the center position. Notice the red button will pop back out. Then check for water in the exhaust. To go forward, push the lever forward until the transmission engages, and then increase speed by pushing the throttle further forward. Return the lever straight up and down for neutral or idle position, and reverse is just the opposite. To shut off the engines, pull the kill knob, wait for the tacks to read 0, and then turn off the key. But don't forget to push it back in when the engine stops. The emergency tiller is attached directly to the rudder post under this deck plate. All you have to do is put the vertical pipe onto the rudder post and attach the tiller arm and steer like a regular tiller. After you've used your cat a few times, the rig will stretch, so you'll need to tighten it periodically. The forestay establishes the rake of the mast. Use the side stays to tighten the rig. Adjust the forestay until the mast is straight up and down. To determine if the mast is leaning to starboard or port, use the main halyard to measure from side to side. Once the mast is straight up and down, tighten the side shrouds equally on both sides. They should be quite snug and have about this much play. Intermediate stays or diamond stays or spreader wires keep the mast from bending too much to the left or right. If the midsection of the mast is bowed to starboard, loosen the port side turnbuckle until it's straight. Then tighten both turnbuckles equally until the stays are snug. The optional dinghy davits are operated by bringing the lines to the winches, cranking the dinghy up, and then closing them with the sheet stoppers. Make sure you don't release the sheet stopper unless the lines are securely wrapped around the winches. Before the autopilot can be used, it must be swung or calibrated. To calibrate the ST5000 autopilot, press the standby button until it says Setup on the display. Pressing the display button once will put you in compass swing mode. Steer the boat in very slow circles, 2 times around. When the autopilot is calibrated, the display will indicate the heading that it thinks the boat is on. Just press the plus or minus keys to adjust it to the same as your ship's compass. You can increase or decrease by 1 degree or 10-degree increments. Then press the standby button to store the new calibration. To calibrate the ST4000 autopilot, press the standby button for 1 second to get in calibration mode. Then press the auto button and make 2 slow circles and adjust the heading just as you did on the ST5000 pilot. To calibrate your wind instrument, immediately after you turn the instruments on, make 2 complete circles. Then hold down the left button until you get into calibration mode. Then adjust the needle to indicate approximately which direction the wind is coming from. To fine-tune, sail upwind on one tack and then on the other tack and adjust until the numbers are the same on both tacks. During the annual haul-out, you'll want to replace the zincs on both sail drives, as well as changing the oil. The main thing to remember is in which order the part is removed so that it can be replaced in exactly the same way. Next comes the inverted cone, which is a line cutter. From here on, it's critical that every piece is carefully positioned and tightened very securely. Seat the hub and tighten the hub nut. And this little piece is critical to holding the prop onto the sail drive. Once it's installed and the 13mm bolt that goes through it is tightened, there are 3 tabs that must be bent around the sides of the bolt to keep it from untightening when the prop's spinning. Once the tabs are bent, they should be hammered into place so that there's no way it can spin off. Be sure to grease the pins and the teeth on the prop blades, and then put the blades in place one at a time, hammering in the large retaining pins. Put user-serviceable blue Loctite on the screws to make sure they don't come out. Do not use the red Loctite, or you might have problems next time. Don't be afraid of using a little muscle. Notice the bend in the Allen wrench. Then check the prop blades to make sure they open and close with minimum friction. To clean out the water intake chamber, insert a rod in the small hole at the bottom of the sail drive, just to make sure that there are no barnacles or other foreign matter lodged inside. And this is where you drain the oil from the sail drive. It's filled from the large plastic cap on top of the drive unit inside the boat. The main thing to remember here is that the seating of the O-ring under the screw is critical to keeping the oil in and the water out. Do not pinch the O-ring. It should be secure but not so tight that it distorts the O-ring. When cleaning your EndeavourCat, use only products that are either non-abrasive or only slightly abrasive, like soft scrub or similar products. And wax the top sides at least once every 2 or 3 months. Rinse your cat down with fresh water each time you use it to reduce corrosion. And when cleaning windows and windshields, use only products specifically made for cleaning plastics, and follow the instructions on the product label. Other common household glass and surface cleaners can cause the windows to fog. That's windows, ports, and hatches. When cleaning